Okay, we are going to get started. Thanks to everyone here in person and for those of you joining us online as well. We're very grateful to have our friend Judi London here from Consulting for Human Services for a great discussion surrounding agency growth. We've titled our discussion, Unlock Your Next Stage. Wanted to just read a quick description that prompted some of these conversations and that will frame in some of the dialogue that will take place today, and then share a bio for Judi, and then we'll get rolling. So every organization wants or needs to grow, but not every organization is ready. Leaders universally recognize the need to increase access to services, to grow revenue, find efficiencies, and develop new and better models for delivery of support and treatment. To grow smartly, to grow well, to grow responsibly. Organizations need to be prepared for the challenges and opportunities presented by growth. Like I said, we have Judi London here. Judi London has devoted her career to helping organizations thrive. As the Chief Strategy Officer of a large IDD provider organization, Judi's portfolio focused on maximizing capacity and expanding access to services through organic growth and acquisitions. As a principal consultant for Consulting for Human Services, Judi represents the mission of the organization to fully engage through hands-on involvement, solutions that drive tangible results, and strategy to fortify client organizations well into the future. Welcome, Judi.
Thank you. It's great to be here, talking about my favorite subject, growth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely on our folks' minds, and really grateful to have you here. So, in terms of growth, as we kick this off, how can you tell if an organization is ready for growth?
It's such a great question. You know, everybody says we really need to grow, we want to grow, we need to be bigger, but not every organization is ready to really handle the weight of growth, depending on the size of it, of course. And so, we always start, particularly with a new engagement, whether it's a growth strategy or a merger and acquisition type of discussion with clients. We always start by talking about, it's time to do some introspection. Is your organization ready? Can your organization handle it? It's almost like, you have an infrastructure or the underpinnings of your organization, and if you put some weight on it, can it withstand it? It's like putting a third floor in a house, right? Is it going to be able to hold it up? And so taking a time to really look at some key areas in your organization to determine whether or not you are ready, whether or not you can handle it, and then more importantly, what do you need to do in order to get there?
Yeah, definitely sensitive topics, and something that is most difficult for a lot of agencies to determine, but what is first?
Well, first of all, everybody knows what their warts are. Everybody knows. But the ability to really look at it and determine what it is and work to fix it, is always a good step. But the first thing always is alignment. So is the executive, the leader of the organization, the board, and the executive team, are they all aligned? Do they all recognize the need to grow? Do they understand the why of it? Why should we grow? It's, for nonprofit organizations, it's a lot mostly about mission. How do we sustain our mission? How do we fortify our mission? How do we expand our mission? For-profit companies, it's, we want to grow revenue. We want to get bigger, right? Because that's where your efficiencies come in. So really understanding the why and getting everybody on board. We usually at CFHS start with information. I'm not going to call it education. I'm going to call it information. So we are often invited to speak to boards and executive teams, and really to look at the industry as a whole, give a 360-degree view of the industry. What's happening around us in our communities, in our states, in our federal government? What's happening that will impact our organization? What's happening in healthcare that will come to get us in a few years? What's happening, around people and jobs and technology? So all of those pieces are important for boards to understand, for executive teams to understand. And once you have that information, it's a wonderful tool to be able to determine, we need to grow. How do we need to grow? And how do we do it responsibly? So that's a big piece of it, is alignment. You never, the there's always that person in the room who says, I'm not for that. I don't support it. So that's a job. I mean, you have to make that case and make sure that everybody's on the bus. And then beyond that, once everybody agrees, yeah, this is where we're going, then we need to really think about, how are we going to grow? Are we going to grow organically? Are we going to get out of our geography? Are we going to go into other states? How are we going to grow? What makes sense for us as an organization? So why, how, and then what, right? So what's the diagnosis of folks we want to serve? What kind of organizations do we want to partner with? So all of that really helps to build the pathway towards growth. And then everybody gets on the bus and goes forward.
Love it. Yeah, that alignment initially and getting everyone aligned is absolutely critical.
It is. It's a growth mindset. And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, we have a growth mindset, but we're too busy right now to think about growth. We've got way too much going on. We're bringing in a new EHR, we're doing this, that, and the other thing, and we really can't think about it. So making sure we all know that this is a priority for our organization, and we're all getting ready to go in that direction.
So once you've prioritized growth, you generally have your leadership team aligned, or not even generally, but you are aligned. Where do you focus next?
Yeah, people. I mean, nobody does it alone. You can be a great leader, but if people are not going to follow you, you've got a problem. So, people is really the next step, and that really involves making sure you have. And this is people talk about this all the time: the right people in the right seat at the right time. But it's so true. If you're going to grow, you need to make sure the people around you see that destination and understand that their focus needs to be getting you there. And not just at the executive level, equally important throughout the organization. Are we investing in our team? Are we recruiting well? And more importantly, what are we doing to retain our staff, to recognize their contribution? Do we have the people thing down? In this industry, in this business, right, in human services, people are what really makes the difference. And so organizations that have the people thing tied up, people thing down, are going to thrive. And you have to put a little bit of work into that.
Yeah. With people and the focus on people, the alignment of the leadership team, prioritizing growth, and determining some of your next steps, one thing that you haven't touched on yet is data. Where does that fit into the play?
Wow. Sometimes I feel like data is like a buzzword, right? Everybody says, oh, we all need data, and we do. Sometimes we don't even know what we're missing in terms of data. But equally, I talked about sharing information with boards and executive teams about what's going on in our industry. We all need to know what's going on in our organizations. And I think that the challenge for me is recognizing the need for data for sure, but then cross-referencing your data. This is happening here, but not happening here. How do we figure out what's going on and how do we change it? And then change it, and how do we know that it's getting better? Really understanding who are the best referrers, who are the best payers, and what's the data to prove that? What are we basing that on, right? So very, very important in terms of operating an organization, but equally growing an organization. I think one of the biggest challenges with data is, can we trust it? There's nothing worse than going through, your key quality indicators or your key indicators and your KPIs, and you look at it and somebody goes, oh, that number's wrong. Nothing worse than that, because all of a sudden you can't trust any of the other data there. So making sure that you have a really good data infrastructure, that there's contribution from throughout the organization for what data we're capturing, that we all agree to do it consistently, and that we're true to it, and that we can trust it.
Yeah, that's actually a topic that's close to our hearts, is the data collection, capture, and actually missing data.
Yep.
So looking at what tools can we put in people's hands at a service and support level that will ensure that we have the data to begin with. We're talking about what do we do with data? Well, that's if it's there.
Yeah.
And starting oftentimes with just proper documentation, notes, incident reporting, transportation, having the right billing codes and units and all of that assigned to payroll side and the individuals. It's really something that for agencies, that's a mixed bag of how well they're doing that. And a question came to mind is, what are the top 5 areas when it comes to data that you think are most important to assess?
Oh my gosh. I mean, certainly you have financial data critical. I mean, if your billing is not right, if you're missing codes and bills are going out, getting denials, I mean, all of that contributes to a bad financial situation. So surely that's a big piece of it. Tracking your operations, you know, and the people part. Are people, you know, who's coming to work? How many workers do we have? Are we recruiting enough people? Are we retaining enough people? How long are people staying? Are we, you know, is our internal promotions important to us? And if so, we need to track that and talk about it. Certainly quality data is there, you know, falls and treatment and medication, missed and otherwise, you know, what's all happening there. And how have changes we've made changed the outcome, right? Or changed the data that we're tracking. I'm a marketing person by trade, so for me, marketing is you know, looking at our referrers. Who's sending us, not the most, the best referrals? Who's sending us the clients who we can say yes to the fastest, or the you know, the most appropriate for our services? Who's sending us the clients with the best insurance? I mean, you know, all of those types of things are really critical. And then what does that referrer look like, right? What's the profile of that referrer so that we can go get more of those? So yeah, I think there's a whole piece of data set, the good, the bad, and the ugly in our industry. And just from a process perspective, you know, you don't want the collection or the capture of data to be so difficult, right? It should be intuitive. There should be eliminate duplication. Like I used to wear a T-shirt at work that said, you know, eliminate duplication. Really important, and eliminate as much, you know, human input or human error as possible. So those are the things that I you know, from a data infrastructure, I think are the most important.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate a lot of the answers here, and I think we've framed out a pretty great conversation and primed the pump. I'm curious if anyone here in attendance would like to ask Judi a question.
Yeah, hi.
I'm just curious, you know, we talk about acquisition and growth, and I know that a lot of folks are interested in that. Some of it recently has been coming up the topic of the program asset transfer. So looking at specific programs that are aligned with your program, and sort of liquidation of the maybe smallish organizations. And have you had any experience with that? Any recommendations?
Well, I have actually had experience with that, and it's really a pretty great way to kind of, you know, put your toe in the water. You know, acquiring or affiliating, you know, an organization, it's challenging, right? You've got in a nonprofit world, you've got boards, you've got approvals. There's a lot of due diligence, but when somebody has a program that they'd like to, maybe it's just not, it doesn't align with the other programs, or they're not doing it well, or they don't have whatever the reason is. It could be, you know, a adult services organization that has a school, and it just doesn't fit in with what they're doing. It's a great way to kind of acquire something that is aligned with what you're doing. It's kind of more, the best one, it's more of what you already do, yeah? And then you don't have to worry about bylaws and boards and all that, because you're buying something of value, or acquiring something of value that's of value to you. It might mean taking on a lease. It might mean acquiring a piece of real estate as well. Of course, you want to make sure the team that's running it will come with you, but by you taking it on, you will likely have some efficiencies that will make that program that is really struggling with that organization begin to come back and sing. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful way to step into the M&A world without, you know, full tilt.
So Judi, you mentioned a word, quality,
I did.
and the work that we do in human services is complex, but where does quality fit into the discussion?
You know, quality is one of those things that you can measure. There's certainly data around it. There's client satisfaction, family satisfaction, payer satisfaction, and so on. But I think there's something more than that too, and that really, I think, is part of your team, right? What are we seeing among the people we serve? Are they engaged? Do they wake up with a smile on their faces? Do they love life? Are we Are they doing something that they love every day? So kind of those qualitative ways to measure. Are we doing a really good job? Quality that's what we deliver, right? So are we doing a really good job of it? And I'll just end with this. I think that the word joy and living with joy and having joy in one's life is really important. And when the person that you are supporting has joy, certainly the person who is supporting them can feel that joy, and vice versa. So you really want this idea of people who have joy in their lives, people who need joy in their lives, and it kind of feeds each other. And ultimately, from a quality perspective, that opens the door for so much more.
Thank you so much for joining us
My
and
pleasure.
for sharing all of these insights. Appreciate all of you here in attendance and for those of you who have joined us online. We are grateful for Judi and Consulting for Human Services and looking forward to our additional discussions.
Great. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks a lot.